Hello, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here to bring you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas War. It is currently the evening of January 28, 2024 in the United States, the morning of January 29, 2024 in the Middle East. Starting with the Gaza situation, today in Paris there was a very high-profile meeting between CIA Director William Barnes, Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed Athani, Egyptian Head of Intelligence Abbas Kamel, the head of the Israeli Mossad Dadi Barnea, and the head of the Israeli Shabak Ronen Bar. This meeting is very important. Prior to the last truce and hostage exchange, breakthroughs were only achieved once these four got together. According to different reports, the meeting was very successful. Different networks reported different leaks from the meeting, each reporting that the talks were done very positively. However, some stated more optimism compared to others. The Saudi Al-Hadith network reported that a breakthrough was achieved in the meeting and the sides agreed on a 2-month truce that will be carried out in 2 phases, during which time hostages will be released and Palestinian prisoners will be released. This matches the statements in New York Times yesterday regarding the framework for the deal. Later, after this publication, both Israel and Hamas toned down the optimism of Al-Hadith. Israel's Channel 13 reported that the conference debated 2 different deals, the Qatari deal and the Egyptian deal. The main difference between those two is how many phases will be during the truce and what will be the rate of hostage exchange. According to the reports, the aim of the conference was to finalize a coherent deal and then pressure Hamas to accept it, rather than having a Qatari and Egyptian deal operating separately. According to reports, the conference was successful in the sense of narrowing down that scope. However, there is still no way to agree or to come to terms with Hamas's demand of a complete ceasefire. Qatar was not able to bring any news regarding Hamas easing its term on a complete ceasefire at the end of the truce. On the one hand, the other hand, Israel still refuses to even contemplate the idea of a complete ceasefire and ending the war on the other. Relating to this meeting, Prime Minister Netanyahu's office stated that the meeting was productive, but that there are still substantial gaps, and the sides will meet again this week. Israel's war cabinet is also due to meet tomorrow to get updates on this. From Hamas's side, Mohammed Nazal, who is a member of Hamas's political bureau, stated that negotiations effectively started today and will continue from where they left off, i.e. where they were frozen after the assassination of Salah al-Aruri. Moving on to the fighting in the Gaza Strip, there were continuous rockets sent from the Gaza Strip targeting southern parts of Israel today, more than in recent days. Rockets targeted the areas of Sderot and Kisufim. There were also barrages sent towards Ashkelon, Kremye, Netiv HaSara, Yad Mordechai, and also to Bat Hadar in the western Lachish area. The IDF reported that some of these rockets were launched from the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, which is significant. In the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, the IDF has operational control of the different towns and refugee camps. However, the IDF has also been stating that Hamas is starting to regain control. The launching of rockets from there may be an additional sign of that. Regarding the fighting in the Gaza Strip, in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, there was a report of a direct bombing of an apartment in the Musa Arafat Tower in Gaza City. Footage showed the attack and was not reported what the target was. However, Palestinians did report that 8 people were killed. It was once again not reported what the target was, but this was not the usual IDF bombings. It was more a targeted attack against this apartment, so likely it was an attempted assassination or something of that nature. In addition, a tunnel was discovered by the IDF in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip and reportedly destroyed. The Al-Quds Brigades, that is the military wing of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, reported firing mortars at IDF forces active in Gaza City. And moving on to the central parts of the Gaza Strip, in the El Bureid refugee camp, the IDF is continuing its operation, with the main aim being the underground weapons manufacturing areas and weapons caches of Hamas. In the El Bureid refugee camp, as well as in the El Nuseirat refugee camp, the IDF has discovered some of the largest weapons warehouses it has found throughout the entire Gaza Strip, and reportedly in the tunnels underneath El Bureid are the main manufacturing areas of Hamas, and that is what the IDF is trying to target. Moving to the southern parts of the Gaza Strip, where most of the fighting is now concentrated, in Khan Yunis, substantial gun battles were reported throughout the day. The IDF reported today that in the last week, 400 Hamas operatives have been killed, primarily in the western parts of Khan Yunis. The IDF also noted that unlike in the north, the fighting units of Hamas in Khan Yunis are being more engaged and are not trying to make their escape. In the last 24 hours, the IDF reported they uncovered a major weapons warehouse in the area, including a large cache of chemical pesticides, which the IDF says are so large it is likely intended to be used for military purposes. The IDF also reportedly established an ad hoc checkpoint to facilitate corridors of Palestinians to evacuate from Khan Yunis towards the Mawasi area. Reportedly, over 20,000 Palestinians have evacuated in the last few days. The IDF reported identifying 70 of these people trying to evacuate as Hamas operatives who were arrested. Al-Qassam brigades, that is the military wing of Hamas, reported firing RPGs in 2 different rounds, specifically the Yassin 105 missiles, at 4 different IDF tanks. Reportedly, these attacks occurred in the Jurat al-Akkad area in western Han Yunis, as well as in Al-Amal. IDF confirmed this, stating that it was suffered several different RPG attacks throughout the day. Al-Quds brigades of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad also reported detonating explosive devices against tanks throughout the day. There was no confirmation regarding if any of these tanks were actually damaged or if soldiers were injured in these attacks. However, they seemingly did occur throughout the entire part of Han Yunis, specifically also located in the western parts. Other news related to the Gaza Strip. The IDF reported changing different divisions in Han Yunis, moving divisions around based on the operational needs. 4 divisions are currently operating throughout the city. Other news, the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, that is the military wing of Fatah, announced that the commander of the group's Radwan force, Muhammad Nafedib, was killed today in the Gaza Strip. Fatah still maintains a small force in the Gaza Strip. Most of it was ousted and actually executed by Hamas in 2007. Most of Fatah's forces are in the West Bank. However, a part of the small force are different fighting units of the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade. According to a report, one of their senior commanders, Muhammad Nafedib, was killed today. Different reports stated that he was assassinated by the IDF in a targeted assassination. Others say that he died in a gun battle. Other news, Yoav Gallant, the defense minister of Israel, stated today, talking to soldiers, again quoting, "This war cannot be won on points, only with a knockout. Hamas must be destroyed if we want to live here. Every terrorist within a radius of hundreds of kilometers from Israel must know that against actions such as these, i.e. October 7th, there's only one outcome." He added that hundreds of Hamas operatives are continuing to surrender in Gaza and specifically in Han Yunis, while the leadership abroad is toughening its stance. Other news related to the fighting in the Gaza Strip, New York Times published an extensive report today analyzing how Hamas built such an arsenal of weapons. According to the report, in addition to 12 large smuggling tunnels from Sinai, in which a lot of weapons were smuggled in, the report estimates, based on intelligence both from Israel and different Western sources, that large amounts of armaments of Hamas have their origins in the IDF, either stolen from IDF bases or primarily reassembled from hundreds of missiles, rockets, and bombs that were fired at the Gaza Strip in the last 15 years but failed to detonate. An analysis of some of the rockets that were sent by Hamas since October 7th show that they are reconstituted IDF armaments. Intelligence analysts also stated that many, if not most, of the explosives being used by Hamas in the ongoing fighting have their origins in IDF explosives, citing a specific case in which a 900-kilogram bomb was dropped on Gaza Strip several years ago, failed to detonate, and intelligence sources stated that hundreds of rockets could be assembled from that amount of explosive materials, or other different explosive devices can also be assembled from that as well. Other substantial weaponry has its origins in Iran and North Korea that reportedly was smuggled in through Sinai. Other news, Wall Street Journal today published an estimate that between 20 to 40% of Hamas's tunnels in the Gaza Strip have either been destroyed or become inoperative, however adding that the number may be even smaller than that these are only estimates because the actual volume of tunnels is unknown. The report added that the IDF's attempt to flood tunnels in order to try to make them inoperative has proved ineffective, and that the IDF is mainly focusing on destroying the junctures in the different tunnels rather than trying to now map out all the tunnels, mostly trying to make them inoperative by destroying the connections between them. Regarding casualties, no IDF soldiers are reported killed in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours, leaving the total number of IDF soldiers that were killed in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began on 222. 6 IDF soldiers reported injured in the Gaza Strip. The number of IDF soldiers that were injured in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began is somewhere between 1,280 and 1,300. The Palestinian Health Ministry is reporting that 165 Palestinians were killed in the last 24 hours in the Gaza Strip, making the total number of Palestinians that were killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began to 26,422. A total of 65,087 Palestinians are reported injured, and several thousand are still buried under the rubble and presumed dead. Moving on to the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, yesterday the IDF announced that it will not allow protesters on the Israeli side to continue to block the entrance of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip through the Kerem Shalom crossing, specifically citing the injunctions that were leveled against Israel in the International Court of Justice that Israel has to allow humanitarian aid in. After today, again, protesters tried to block the entrances. The IDF declared the area around the Kerem Shalom crossing a closed military zone, hoping to avoid protesters from blocking trucks from entering. The organization that is organizing the protests, that is called Order 9, promised to continue to try to block trucks along with the family members of some of the hostages. A member of the Knesset from Jewish Power, Limor Shon HaMelech, also arrived with the protesters and tried to block trucks. Different Likud members today sent letters to Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Gallant, asking them to stop the mechanism of aid coming into the Gaza Strip. Other news related to the humanitarian situation related to these attempts at stopping trucks: 4 Israeli settlers were arrested today on charges of attacking the drivers of 2 different aid trucks on their way to the Gaza border. According to the police, the 4 slashed tires, threw stones at the trucks, and attacked the drivers with tear gas. Other news related to the humanitarian situation: in the last 24 hours, France and Japan joined the 9 countries that announced that they are suspending their funding to UNRWA, pending the investigation that is being carried out regarding UNRWA workers who may have participated in the October 7th attack. More information was published today about those 12 workers. According to Israel, some participated in the active attack, including carrying out murders and kidnappings, and others engaged in weapon smuggling and transporting and offering logistical support for the attack. Israeli intelligence is reportedly right now doing a blitz to identify other UNRWA workers who are Hamas affiliates, and this is causing a lot of uproar within Israel's political establishment. Israel for years has said that UNRWA cooperates with Hamas. Now it seems that most of the countries of the world are listening to what Israel has to say, and it is trying to gather more information in order to make UNRWA look even worse as these different reports are coming in. UNRWA spokesperson Adnan Abu Hassana stated today that with the current rate of freezing funds, UNRWA will not be able to provide humanitarian relief past the month of February, citing that right now, in addition to all its regular work, UNRWA is providing shelter to 90% or 85% of the population of the Gaza Strip, and that slashing the funding to UNRWA right now is completely unacceptable. Also citing in the news report that he gave that the total number of workers that have been accused of participating on October 7th is 12 workers out of 13,000 who work for UNRWA. In addition to this, today a flour shipment was seen being disseminated in the southern parts of the Gaza Strip. It was not reported if this is the flour shipment that came through the port of Ashdod and entered through the Kerem Shalom crossing. This is part of a deal between Israel and the United States that was not reported upon, but was mentioned in a press conference last week. Unclear if this is actually starting to be implemented or not. It was not reported today by any of the agencies how many aid trucks actually managed to enter into the Gaza Strip. Moving on to the West Bank, substantial IDF activity was reported in several different places. In the Shiuch village north of Hebron, IDF forces entered and arrested 2 people involved in illegal infiltrations of Palestinians into Israel. In the Wadi Burkin village near Jenin refugee camp, substantial confrontations erupted as the IDF carried out an operation in the area. Many Palestinians are reported injured, and 2 Palestinians who the IDF entered to arrest were in fact located and arrested. In addition, in the Kalkas village, weaponry was located by the IDF, and money suspected to fund terror activity was confiscated. In addition, right before starting to record this, was reportedly an operation developing in the town of Jenin. Many IDF vehicles were seen entering the town, and clashes were developing. A total of 10 Palestinians are reported arrested throughout the West Bank in the last 24 hours. Moving on to the northern parts of Israel and southern parts of Lebanon, continuous rockets and missiles were sent from Lebanon targeting the northern parts of Israel today. In the western Galilee, rockets targeted the areas of Shomron, Arabah, and Ramsheh. There were also rockets sent towards the upper Galilee, areas of Margaliot, Zarit, and Kiryat Shmona. In Katzrin, which is in the Golan, 2 targets were intercepted in the air, unclear what they were. Some reports suggested they were attack drones, however this was not confirmed. Anti-tank missiles were also fired towards IDF outposts in Shomra, and 2 others were also fired at other IDF outposts in the Zarit area. Hezbollah also claimed responsibility for launching 2 more Falk 1 missiles towards IDF outposts. These are much stronger missiles. They launched them for the first time in the war yesterday. He launched 2 missiles, now they launched another 2, as well as a Burkan missile towards Israel. In addition to this, after there were reports yesterday that off the coast of Lebanon, near the border with Israel, there was a fire scene in the sea, and then all the reports said actually nothing happened. Today, Al-Miyadin claimed that Hezbollah used attack drones against an Israeli nautical installation, and that it confirmed striking the installation. This was not confirmed by the IDF or anyone else. Regarding IDF retaliation in the last 24 hours, the IDF stated that it carried out attacks against Hezbollah military structures, lookout posts, and military compounds in the areas of Meruchin, Adaharia, and Ita Sha'ab. An operational command center of Hezbollah was also attacked, and artillery and tank fire was also reported throughout the day. Other attacks were reported in the Zabkin and in the Hula areas. There were reports in Lebanon that in the IDF attack in Adaharia, 4 houses were destroyed and 1 woman was injured. In addition to this, El Manar stated that the IDF attacked with artillery fire in the Anakura and Markaba area and north of Kfar Kila. Lebanese news agency also reported the IDF attacked in the Arun village with attack drones. Hezbollah stated that throughout the day, 3 of its operatives were killed, bringing the total number of operatives that Hezbollah claims were killed since the war began to 174. According to the IDF, that number is much larger. Turning to some political news, amidst reports a week ago that Israel gave the United States a deadline of the end of January to come to some sort of diplomatic resolution regarding the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, and reports yesterday that an Arab country told Hezbollah that Israel is planning a major offensive into the heart of Lebanon. Today, the U.S. Special Envoy to the region, Alon Burstein, stated to CBS that he does not know of a hard deadline from Israel, but that it is clear that the current status quo cannot go on forever. He added that negotiations must allow civilians on both sides to return home safely, referring to the fact that tens of thousands of civilians have evacuated from the northern parts of Israel and from the southern parts of Lebanon. And he added that through negotiations, what has to happen is the Lebanese army has to be brought into the area in order to preserve safety for civilians on both sides. When the report came out a week ago that stated that Israel gave a deadline of the end of January to the United States, after that, other reports came out saying that Israel said this is not a hard deadline, but in fact, it's simply saying it's running out of patience. Now, Alon Burstein used that same phrase, he doesn't know of a hard deadline. We can probably surmise from that Israel did in fact tell the United States that as of the end of January, it may start increasing its attacks in Lebanon. It did not state that it's going to launch an all-out war, but it stated the rules of the game are going to change. Possibly, we'll see in the coming days. Moving on to some of the regional developments, a U.S. base at the Jordanian-Syrian border, Tower 12, was attacked today with suicide drones. 3 U.S. Marines were killed and 34 were wounded. This is the first time that U.S. Marines or any U.S. troops are killed in relation to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas and the regional developments, and specifically this is also the first time that a major attack was carried out against the U.S. base. President Biden stated the attack was carried out by pro-Iranian militias, and U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin stated that the U.S. will retaliate when it sees fit. Prior to this attack on Friday, it was announced that Iranian militias have carried out over 158 attacks against the U.S. and coalition since the war began. Other news related to Yemen, the Houthis launched an attack drone against a British destroyer today. It was intercepted and reportedly destroyed before it managed to reach the destroyer. Moving on to the political and general trends for the last 24 hours, the IDF is reportedly working on a plan to facilitate civilians returning to the towns and kibbutzim surrounding the Gaza Strip. The plans reportedly include combat soldiers that will live in the area and have patrol duties. What this tells us is that Israel is once again seeing already the next phase of when it will allow civilians to come back, and that may tell us something about how Israel is at least evaluating the threat from Hamas. Other news, NBC reported today that the Biden administration is considering slowing down weapons sales to Israel as a pressure mechanism on Prime Minister Netanyahu to get him to agree to lower the intensity of the war. The report emphasized that this is just being considered and will not include air defense shipments. The White House responded to this report, saying there is no change in policy with regards to weapons sales to Israel. Other news, Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan met Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukeri today. The two discussed regional developments and paving the way to a ceasefire. They then gave a joint statement in which the Saudi minister accused Israel of starvation policies in Gaza, and the Egyptian minister called on Israel to stop the genocide and collective punishment in Gaza, adding that the Houthi attacks are a result of Israel's violations in Gaza. The Wall Street Journal today published an interview with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Among others, he stated that the war is proceeding better than expected, and noted that when fighting ISIS, it took the United States and the coalition 9 months to take over Mosul, and that Gaza, which is much larger than Mosul, is only in its 4th month, and that the war is going to continue for much longer. With regards to the future of the Gaza Strip, he stated, and I quote, "While there are those in the U.S. who believe that the obstacle to peace is me, they fail to understand that I represent the views of most Israelis." With regards to the actual future, what will be in the Gaza Strip, he added, "The Palestinians need to have all capabilities of self-rule, with no capabilities to threaten Israel." He also added, again, that Israel must maintain security control over all territory west of the Jordan River, which he stated explicitly collides with Palestinian sovereignty, adding, "Any future solution to the conflict must begin by recognizing the reality of the present, i.e., he's not willing to discuss any future developments with regards to the Gaza Strip unless the current developments that Israel is going to have security control of over everything from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea is actually accepted." Moving on to the future of the Gaza Strip, many ministers in Israel and members of Knesset participated in a convention in Jerusalem that was titled Occupying and Settling the Gaza Strip. This included many members of the Likud, ministers Miki Zohar and Chaim Katz, also Bezalel Smotrich of Religious Zionism, Yitzhak Goldknopf of United Torah Judaism, as well as Itamar Ben-Gvir of Jewish Power. Each of these made different statements regarding their visions for the future of the Gaza Strip. Some of these are quite significant. Yitzhak Goldknopf, who is not only Minister of Housing and Construction, he's also the head of United Torah Judaism, stated, and I quote, "Giving up parts of the land of Israel not only does not bring security, it is a direct cause of Jewish blood spilled. I will support the Israeli government to undo this horrible wrong and return to Gush Katif," those were the settlements in the Gaza Strip, and the Gaza Strip in general, which was Jewish land since the days of old. This is critically important because unlike religious Zionist party, Yitzhak Goldknopf represents one of the ultra-Orthodox parties who don't usually make such vocal statements regarding support of settlements, and this may be a change in policy on their part, which may be significant. Minister of Communications for the Likud, Shlomo Kari, stated, "We have to settle in the Gaza Strip with security forces and settlers that will ensconce them and the country with love. We have a duty to act, for us and also for the people of Gaza, to promote willful immigration of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip." Minister of National Security and head of Jewish Power Itamar Ben-Gvir stated in his speech, "Running away brings war. We need to return home and rule the territory to offer solution to willful immigration and death penalty for terrorists." Responding to a sign while he was speaking that said only a transfer will bring peace, i.e. transferring Palestinians out of the territory, he responded, "That's right, encouraged by will, get them out of here." Minister of Finance and Minister in Israel's defense establishment, Bezalel Smotrich, leader of religious Zionism, stated in his speech, "The nation of Israel is at an important crossroads. Do we run away from terrorism and let the hotbed of murderous hatred grow beyond the fence again? Or do we settle the land, rule it, fight terrorism, and bring security to the state of Israel? You know the answer. Without settlements, there is no security." He added that by the grace of God, settlements will return to safeguard the Israeli state. Responding to all this, Prime Minister Netanyahu was asked about his views on the conference. He evaded the question. However, a senior Likud member who wanted to remain anonymous stated to different news agencies that the Likud is vastly critical of those Likud members who participated in the conference, stating this does not represent the Likud's official position and is going to make the Likud lose votes. What we are seeing here is more entrenchment of the different sides. Like I said, not only the most hawkish elements in Israel's government, like religious Zionism and Jewish Power, but also the hawkish elements within the Likud, and for the first time, also members of ultra-Orthodox parties, all taking a very public and firm stance, likely anticipating that the day after is going to start being debated more intensely in the coming months, and they are making clear where their positions lie and what, as far as they're concerned, is the debate that the government is going to have. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.